Welcome to another episode of the Ronny Phillip Show. I'm your host, Ronny Phillip, with the Kingly Group at Keller Williams Realty. Also with Kingly Acquisitions, where we focus on acquiring value-add apartment buildings. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate here in Texas, give me a call, and I'd love to help you out in any way I can. And if you're watching this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, give us some hearts, leave us some questions, leave us some comments. And please ask us some questions so that way we can answer them live at the end. And if you found this video valuable, make sure you share it. So today I have an awesome guest on our show, Travis Chappell. Did I say it right?
Chappell. Close enough, yeah.
I think Grant Cardone said it, Chappell.
Yeah.
I think it's because I watched the interview. Travis Chappell with Build Your Network is here on the show today. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Happy to stop by.
So, let's dive into it. Give us like an introduction of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, man. So, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. If you find some value in this, be sure to share it, like, comment, ask a question or two. And then tell us where you're from. If you're watching, if you're tuning in from Dallas, if you're tuning in from somewhere else, let us know. But yeah, so I've basically always kind of had that little entrepreneurial itch, so to speak. When I was a kid, I would sell these like little plastic bugs that I made at my house. You know, my parents got me one of those little like bug ovens, and I would make little bugs, bring them to school, sell them for $0.25 or whatever. And then in high school, because my parents were involved in real estate, I started doing a lot of landscaping, different things like that. So started my first business that year. I was heading into my senior year of high school with a buddy of mine, and we started just mowing lawns and putting in sod jobs and different things like that for some of the investors that my dad was working with. And I remember sitting in class. It was my senior year, so we had worked that entire summer. Didn't make it's not like we were making a ton of money, but as a 16-year-old kid with no responsibility or anything, it seemed like a ton of money at the time.
Yeah.
We probably made like, I don't know, $6,000 or $7,000 that summer or something. So heading into school, we had a little bit of money, and I remember landing 2 jobs before we got into school. And I was sitting in class, obviously not paying attention to what the teacher had to say, and figuring out numbers, working some numbers and figuring out how much money I was gonna make on the job. And it turned out that I actually was gonna make more profit than the people that I was paying to do the labor on the jobs, because obviously we couldn't do the labor on the jobs anymore. We're back in school, so full workload as a senior in high school, and football practice, all that kind of stuff. So we hired college students to do the work for us on the job, and I remember sitting down and figuring out that I was going to make more money just by selling the job than they were going to make by doing all of the labor for the job for those 5 or 6 days, however long it took them. And so that was kind of like the first time I really realized the value of creating relationships and selling. It was a big aha moment for me. And then fast forward a couple years, I was in college. A buddy of mine started knocking doors and selling solar. I jumped on that, started selling, doing door-to-door sales for a solar company, and kept that going for a little while, and then switched over to the alarm industry, did that for a couple of years, and then transitioned over into the water industry, which is where I'm in right now. So I currently have a water business, and I work with a few guys, and we basically sell whole home water filtration systems to customers. During this whole time, I went through a big personal development phase, and that's when I really got involved in the podcasting world. Got in touch with a really good mentor named John Lee Dumas, OG podcaster.
Oh yeah, I love his show.
Yeah, one of the best out there. So he's been kind of a really big mentor for me in that space, and started doing that podcasting about a year ago or so. Coming up on a year, August will be a year. But been able to talk to some really, really cool people on there, and interview some fantastic guests, and basically just learn as much as I can. So yeah, that's kind of just me in a nutshell. Quick story there. So
yeah, I think that's awesome as far as your transition from doing landscaping into what you're doing now. Tell me a little bit more about your water company.
Yeah, so it's called Revive Water. We sell, it's basically water softeners, but just kind of the nicest water softeners you can get a hold of. So we call it a water purification system. So I started basically just selling with a buddy that I sold alarms with, and he was like, hey, you make more money here. I started working with him. We started knocking and selling. And then after a couple months, it was just kind of got to the point where we both were like, hey, why do we keep building teams for other people's companies and then they have control over it in the end? And so we both basically branched off from the company that we're working for. He started his company, I started my company, and then we've been rolling with that ever since. So got a few door-to-door reps that go out, knock on doors, sell accounts, and then now I'm learning all the back office, the back end side of things as far as running the actual business, which has been, you know, I kind of envy the sales reps again. I wish I could just kind of go back and just sell and not have to worry about all the other, you know, bull crap that you have to deal with as a company. But it's been a really big learning curve for me. But I've enjoyed every segment of it. So
yeah, I think that's great, man. And is that based in?
It's based in Vegas.
Vegas.
Yep.
And do y'all do like? Have you heard of those alkaline water systems? Do y'all do that too? Or no?
Yeah. So. That's actually how I got into the water industry, was through a company called Enagic. They sell Kangen water.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my first glimpse into the water, because when I first heard about it, I was like, $4,000 for a water machine? Good luck, nobody's going to buy that. And then I started seeing people buy them, and I was like, okay, that's really interesting. I bought one. I started selling. Great product. Didn't, you know, had some disagreements with how the company did stuff and commissions and how they paid out and different things like that. And so I knew that at that point the water industry was legit and that people would pay a lot of money for quality water. I mean, it makes sense because we're like 60% water. So if you take care of the water that you put in your body, it's obviously going to make your entire quality of life better. So really realized the value of selling water during that time period. And this was during when I was selling alarms. So I just started kind of just throwing those in on the side. So that's where I started. So we actually have our own alkaline water product. It's not through that company, but it does provide alkaline water to our customers, yeah.
So it's like a filtration system? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a huge trend now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Have you been to like Tony Robbins' conference and stuff?
I haven't been to any of his conferences now. I mean, I've watched a lot of his stuff, but I've never actually been to one of his conferences now.
Yeah, he was talking about on the fourth day about alkalinity. You should definitely go to UPW. I think that's an awesome place to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
But that's where I first became aware of it in 2016, and then I think what you're doing with the water industry is really, really cool.
Yeah. So
how did you get into this podcasting? You said you started a year ago, and you've interviewed people like Grant Cardone and Lena Cardone, so many different people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're building super fast.
Yeah. So for me, it was basically just a kind of a journey of self-discovery and personal development, if that makes sense. So I had, and my dad's sitting right here, you can tell you from experience that I never was into personal development. I didn't read, didn't, you know, listen to any audio. Like I never did any of that kind of stuff growing up. And I just kind of hit a point in my life where I had kind of topped out at the company that I was working with. And I really just, I looked 5 years, 10 years into the future and was like, I don't want to be doing what I'm doing currently forever. And if I keep going on the route that I'm going on, that's what I'm going to be doing. And so I kind of took a step back. I took 5 or 6 months. My wife actually kind of went back to work. We had a real estate deal that worked out and we took some money out of that. And I basically took every day for probably about 6 months, just like I would go to the gym, I would come home and do personal development, like watch YouTube videos or listen to an audiobook or something. And that's when I first discovered podcasting. A buddy of mine turned me on to Entrepreneur on Fire, which is John Lee Dumas' show. I started listening to his show, following his content. And then if you know a lot about John, if you don't, you should check him out. If you know a lot about John, though, he publishes all of his income reports. So basically, I was reviewing those one time and I was like, man, this dude made like $300,000 last month. And he publishes his income report with his gross revenue and his net revenue. So you can see his top and bottom line right there, what he spends his money on, all this stuff. But with his podcast, he has little to no expenses. So, I mean, when he grosses 300 grand, he nets like 240 grand, you know what I mean? Like, so with most businesses, if you're running a $3 or $4 or $5 million business, you're lucky to, you know, squeak away with a 10, 15% profit margin, you know? He's obviously way higher than that, 60, 65, 70% profit margin. So that was really, really intriguing to me. And then the fact that he could kind of automate it and move all over the place, that was also really, really intriguing to me. So I started kind of following his stuff and took a podcasting course that he had out there and just thought it's something that I can do. And then I really just evaluated in a risk versus reward type of a thing. And I was like, what's the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is I spend some money on this, I spend some time on this, and in a year from now, nobody's ever heard of me, nobody's ever listened to my show, but I've been able to talk with really cool people that I respect and admire and learn a lot from them and figure out some things going forward with my life. And I was like, that's a pretty good worst case scenario. So just kind of jumped right into it.
So how did you make that decision that you're going to just start doing this personal development. That 6 months, tell me what that looked like.
Yeah, it was kind of a desperation thing for me because I just had no idea what I was going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I hadn't grown up like when I was in high school, I had one thing in mind because I grew up really religious, and I had one thing in mind, which was like be a youth pastor. So when I figured out that that's not what I was going to do, the only real skill that I had was knocking on doors and selling things. So like I was just like, man, I'm either going to have to like really deep dive into this or figure something else out, or else I'm just going to be stuck. And so I actually remember applying to a couple of jobs that I felt super overqualified for, and I didn't even get those jobs. And it was just like a kind of a moment, like, what am I going to do here? You know, I don't want to go back to school, that's for sure. I feel like that's not even the right way for me. So like, what am I going to do with my life? I don't even know, do I be a firefighter? Or like, I was like very much back in like my 14-year-old body trying to figure out like, what am I going to do with my life? And so personal development for me was really the only way out of that, was just like making myself a better person. Because people get it confused, I think that they think personal development is about reading a book and then you find something super practical in there, and it's just like this big light bulb that's just like, I should become an astronaut, and like you read it in a book and then so that's what you go do, right? That's not what it is. Personal development is literally making you become the person that you need to be in order to be able to make the decisions that you need to make. That's all. It's a whole journey. It's not just like one like snap of a finger, or it's one light bulb that comes on. It's a journey of making yourself who you're supposed to be so that you can become the person that can do the things that you feel like you can do and that you need to get done. So it was kind of out of a desperation thing for me, and it was just a long journey of becoming, still obviously we all are always on that journey, consistently, constantly, always on that journey. But if you continue to become that person, then you'll continue to make the decisions that person is supposed to make.
Yeah, I think I'm like in that same kind of scenario right now.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to see like what you're doing with podcasting is like exactly what I want to do with podcasting. Just my Facebook audience and the people watching the show, organically reach thousands of people. So it's just really cool to see. You started a year ago, and it'll be a year in August, correct?
A year in August, yeah.
And you've had like 100 something people on your show.
130 interviews, and I think I released 132. Yesterday. Yeah, so it's been a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've done, this is episode number 16 for those of y'all watching of the Ronny Phillips Show. I started January 2017, and it was kind of the same reason. I wanted to meet cool people and different things like that. So this is the first interview of the Ronny Phillips Show where I'm interviewing a podcaster. How crazy is this, guys? So if y'all are enjoying this video, make sure y'all share it. So we're going to dive into some of the questions he asked guests, because I wanted to flip the script on him. So I think this will be fun. So
Mark McMains, what's up, bro? What's happening?
So do you believe that what you know or who you know is more important, and why?
Yeah, so this is a question that I ask every single guest. If you guys watch and follow my show at all, you know that this is a question I ask every single guest that comes on. It was funny when I actually wrote that question out when I first started my show. It was very much, since my show is about networking, it was very much about setting up the conversation, because I thought it would just kind of be like a lob for a home run, right? I figured everybody would just be like, oh, it's who you know. And then we'd have this big agreeing moment that networking is important, and then we move on to the bulk of the conversation, right? And it just turned out that that's not how it was. So I started asking people that question, and I started getting just a variety of different answers from it. So because of that, it kind of turned into like my staple question, because now I'm genuinely curious to hear what people think. So I've asked that question to over 130 people, probably about 145 if I can remember how many episodes that I have like waiting to be released. So I've developed my own answer to that question. It's the same answer, simple wise, but my why has kind of changed a little bit. So I believe that it's who you know, because I believe that the who you know will always increase the what you know exponentially, and I don't think that the opposite of that is as true. So if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you make something happen yourself, you can definitely do that. And you can read some books, and you can take some courses, and you can have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in finance. Like you can know all those things, and you can bootstrap it yourself, and you can definitely make it happen. I know a lot of very, very successful people that have done it that way. But it seems to me that the people who bypass a lot of the failing and figuring out phase are the people who spend a lot of time with people who have already been there before you. So the way that I kind of picture it is like standing in line at an amusement park, right? So if me and you are, you know, going to Six Flags or whatever, and we're going to go ride Goliath, or what, I don't know what Six Flags rides are at.
The Titan.
So say we're going to go ride the Titan, right, together, and you go ahead, and I gotta go to the bathroom real quick. I go to the bathroom, wait in line, I wash my hands. By the time I get up over there, you're already 25 people ahead in line, right? Mm-hmm. So like, what do? I don't just stand in the back of the line. I'm like, Ronnie, hey, and you're like, Travis, what's up? Come up here. So now what happens is I get to walk past those 25 people that are standing in line, right? So the bottom line is like, could I stand in line and get to the point that you're at currently? Yes. It's going to take me a little while, but I got to step all those steps those people are at, and I got to wait my turn, so to speak, and then that's going to get me up to that part in line. But with me knowing somebody that's 25 people ahead, that's calling me up and saying, hey, come up here, now I get to speed past all these people. Am I still walking those same steps? Yes. But does it take me as long? No, it doesn't. And that's kind of what I like in the who you know or what you know question too, because I think that it's important to understand that, like, if you pick who, it's not like you're saying that knowledge doesn't matter, because of course it does, right? Wisdom, knowledge, applied knowledge, like all that stuff, it very much matters. You have to be competent and you have to add value to people, or else you're going to be burning through relationships, even if you know a bunch of people or put yourself in the position to. So you have to have both, for sure. I've just found that the who will increase my what exponentially, and the opposite of that isn't necessarily true. So I know that's a really long-winded answer to that question.
Wow, guys, make sure you are taking notes on this. This is pure brilliance here. I mean, that there's a reason why you asked that question, and you definitely thought that out. That's awesome, guys. There's a lot of millennials and like young kids watching my show and just trying to get advice. So if you are watching this, make sure you are taking notes. This is incredible knowledge. Next thing, tell me about a time when a connection in your life led to a moment of success.
Literally every moment of success I ever had was from a connection that I've made. Everything that that's why I ended up starting the show, was that basically I was like, okay, I want a podcast. I was like, what do I podcast about? And so I thought, I can do sales, because that's all I did, right? Door-to-door sales. I built door-to-door sales teams. Like, that's what I did. So I'll just do a podcast about sales. So I go to iTunes and I type in sales, and there's only like 500,000 podcasts out there that are about sales, right? So I was like, well, that's not really a really good niche to kind of like double down on if there's already, you know, literally dozens of shows, or probably even hundreds of shows about sales or selling. Like, if you go to the top business podcasts, probably like 40 shows on there that are about some sort of selling and how to sell. So I was like, that's a really, really crowded space. I'm not gonna be able to stand out very quickly if I do it that way. So I was like, what's another thing that I know has attributed to some of the success I'm able to see at the age that I'm at? And this first thing that came to my mind was networking, like getting around people. Like when I the first year that I made 6 figures in door-to-door alarm sales was because I was hanging out with a guy who had made 7 figures in door-to-door alarm sales. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, just having that connection, getting around that person, getting mentorship from that individual, that's what allowed me to see some success. So was it my sales ability? Ultimately, was it the work that I put in? Yes, 100%. But if I didn't have that connection to that person, I would not have seen it. So I was just like, okay, if I do that, then now I'm going to be able to not just make myself better at networking, but build my own network. Right, so like I'll get more skills because I'm talking to people who are good at it, but I'll also meet more people because I'm creating a platform that people want to come on. So really, literally every single big moment of success, especially in the last year, has come through some sort of a connection one way or another. I'm trying to think of one that would be like multiple touches, you know what I mean? That from like this person to that person to this person to this person type thing. But man, there's just like literally so many of them. I'll give you one example. So Jack Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, I'm interviewing him in July, first week of July. That came about from a connection that I reached out to when I first started my show, a guy named Ivan Meisner, who's the founder of BNI, Business Networking International. So those networking groups that you go to like once a week, and there's a realtor and a lender and a pest control guy, and they all give each other business. That's BNI, that's Business Networking International, which is Ivan Meisner's business. So I interviewed Ivan and then asked for a connection from him to a couple other people, introduced me to them, introduced me to Jack's assistant, who introduced me to Jack, and then I was really persistent, stayed consistent for 6 months of really building up a good audience and building up bigger names on the show, and I finally was able to get Jack Canfield to agree to an interview. So, and I've not announced that, by the way, so you're getting some exclusive.
That's some exclusive stuff, guys. Make sure y'all are paying attention to this. Man, I think that's really cool how, like, just with, I learned so much from your podcast.
Appreciate that, bro.
I mean, and
it's not me, it's just my guests are just really good, so.
Yeah, I mean, even like what you do as a podcaster, I've been studying, you know, so I'm sure you're like noticing all the different things I'm doing on the show. I'm sure not. Do people interview you on podcasts that much, or you're more the interviewer?
I think I've been on almost 30 shows now.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So quite a few. I'm actually doing 2 more tomorrow. So I'm doing this one. I'm doing this with you tonight, and then I have 2 actual like radio shows tomorrow too. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think it's cool being on both sides. I think I've only been on 1 or 2 podcasts. I have another one coming up, but I think I think podcasting is the best way to network. This is how you meet the coolest people.
It's about platform, man.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, something that I'm working on right now is a membership course, a platform, a site basically where you can go in, take a bunch of courses on how to network better, how to get around the people, the influencers that you want to get a hold of, the Grant Cardones of the world, the Kevin Harringtons of the world, some of the people that I've been able to interview on my show. And one of the whole sections in that membership platform is going to be about building a platform for yourself. Even if you never become the Jordan Harbinger of the world or the Grant Cardone of the world where you have millions of people that follow your stuff, all it does is make you more legitimate and get people to agree to give you some of their time. I've literally had people that I've really wanted to connect with that literally told me no to like a 2 or 3 minute phone call. I started off with just a soft ask. I thought that would be a better way to approach it. I was like, hey, can I have 2 or 3 minutes? Just want to ask a quick question. And they said, no, don't have time for that. Or another person who you probably would know said, hey, I charge a lot of money to my mastermind to have exclusive time with me, and I wouldn't be fair to them for me to hop on a phone call with you for free. And I was like, hey, that's fair, but I have a podcast, you know. And then he was like, okay, well, I'll come on your podcast, because it adds value to them. It brings some sort of value to them, having that platform where they can come on and share things and possibly bring more people into their audience, into their products, into their services. Like, that's what's going to benefit them, and it's all about adding value to other people.
Yeah. I think, how do you even select these type of people to be on your podcast? Because for me, I'm very selective in who I bring onto the Ronny Phillips Show. I bring people on that actually inspire me.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you select, or what's your criteria as far as your ideal guest?
As long as I think that they'll add value to my audience. So not every single guest I've had on is somebody that I've admired for months and months and really wanted to get on my show. But if I think that they have something valuable to bring to my audience, if they've created something that most people haven't created, or if they've networked their way into circles of people, like some of my best guests have been not some of the well-known names, but just people who know all the well-known names and are by that super successful because of the association they have with these people, and they get all these deals and different offers because they're working side by side and have these awesome circles of people. So if I think that they can add value to my audience, then I'll bring them on the show. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's see, what was the other one? How many connections did it take you to meet that person, and how far behind in your story would you be if you have never made that connection? So let's pick an example of one guest on your show, Grant Cardone. How did that whole thing happen?
That was a lot of work, man. So I went. It's half of this is just about showing up. I mean, half of it's just like trying to get. Hang on one second. I see a question here that I want to answer before I get into that one. What options of platforms do you see being most beneficial? Well, Chance, to be honest with you, my biggest thing is podcasting, or else I do what I believe to be the best platform, right? Or else, I'd be on a different platform. So I do the podcasting on purpose because of a couple of reasons. Number one, podcasting is something that a lot of people will not have to focus on completely, if that makes sense. So like if I'm gonna sit and watch YouTube content, then I have to like sit in front of my computer or sit in front of my phone and just like watch content, right? And not everybody has time to do that, especially not a lot of productive people. So unless they have like dedicated time where they're like, hey, I'm gonna watch some content on YouTube for a little bit, right? So podcasting is something where people can just put you in their ears and then they go around and go about their day. They're at the gym, they're in the car, they have you on in the background. It also creates a really personal connection versus like having a blog or something, because if you're blogging, you're only reading content and you don't hear that person's voice. Whereas when you're on a podcast, people really get to know you. Like people come up to me and they're like, man, that's cool that you have your podcast, and we do a little bit of interaction, and they're like, man, you're the same person, you know, that I listen to every day. Like you're like the same, like it sounds the same, right? Because they're actually getting to know me as a person when they're on my show. So I prefer it to blogging because of that. I prefer it to YouTubing because you don't have to give it your undivided attention to be able to consume the content. And then it's such the platform's just in its infancy, and I think that it has a long way to go. So that's just a couple of the reasons that I pick podcasting. But that's just me, you know what I mean? Like as long as you have some sort of a platform, a YouTube show, Instagram, you know, live, or you know, the options are almost limitless in the technological day that we live in. But I like podcasting for a few of the reasons that I already mentioned. Plus, it's easier to get high-level guests on a podcast because more people will agree to audio-only interviews than will agree to video interviews or like in-person interviews and stuff like that. So, and people will agree more to an interview than they will to writing a guest blog post for you, because that actually takes a lot of time where they have to like sit down, outline, like come up with content. Whereas when you have them on a podcast, you can actually ask them questions and they don't have to like do a ton of preparation to be on it. So that's my reason for podcasts. I want to make it as easy as possible for the people that I want to connect with to say yes to me when I ask them to come on my show. Where do you post your podcast? Any podcasting platform. So iHeartRadio, Stitcher, iTunes, any podcasting app. I personally use Castbox a lot, because I think it's an easier platform to listen to podcasts on. So that's the one that I listen to, that I choose as my podcast listening platform. But you can find it basically anywhere. And I think last time I checked, I'm pretty sure I'm in the top 50 on business podcasts. So if you just go to iTunes and look at the top 50 business podcasts, you should be able to find my stuff there.
And also, we'll be putting the link to his group in the video below, and we'll leave the Q&As from the audience towards the end of the video. So make sure I watch this entire thing because it's really awesome.
Cool. So anyway, back to your Grant Cardone question. So went to an event. Like I said, half of this stuff is about showing up, just about putting yourself in the right situation to be able to meet the people that you want to meet. So I was at an event called Thrive, which is put on by a mentor of mine, Cole Hatter. Fantastic event. It's out in Vegas this year in September. If you are looking for more events to go to, highly recommend that one. So I was at Thrive last year, and Elena and Grant Cardone both spoke at it. So at the event, I didn't meet Grant, I met Elena, and I took a picture with Elena because a lot of people were neglecting Elena and going straight for Grant. So I took a picture with Elena and talked to her for a little bit, made a little bit of an impression, posted that to Instagram, and then reached out to her on Instagram, got her on my show. It took me about 8 weeks to actually get her on my show. She said yes immediately, but she's so busy, so I had to reach out multiple times, be super persistent to get her back on. Got her on, reached out to Grant, still couldn't get a hold of him. So then I just started getting people that were in his inner circle, people that spoke on his stage at 10X GrowthCon. Brad Lee is a good buddy of mine now, out in Vegas. Ed Milet, I had him on my show. Lori Harder, Chris Harder, Cole Hatter, some of these people that I know that Grant not only knows, but Grant respects and admires and likes rubbing shoulders with those people. So I eventually reached out to him again after 4 more months of getting better content, getting a bigger audience, all that kind of stuff. I finally reached back out to Grant and said, hey, I'm gonna be in Miami next week, let's just do it in person. And he said, okay, come on through the office and get it scheduled with my assistant. So after about 4 or 5 months of lots of connecting, lots of working to get people in his circle that he knew, recognizable names on my show, then I asked him, and he eventually said yes. So it took a long time, but we're actually, since I did it in person, we're actually able to really connect and talk for a little while and stuff like that, which was really good.
Yeah, that show, by the way, y'all need to go check it out on his profile. It was one of the best interviews I've ever watched. Like,
appreciate that.
It was really cool, and he had a bunch of highlights like on his Instagram and stuff. That's how you know it was a good interview. Yeah. So
and too, by the way, I created those.
Yeah.
And gave them to him. Yeah. Are you talking about my Instagram or his?
Yeah, like I'm sure, like with your podcast, you created them, right?
Yeah. So that was another thing.
So that
too.
way it's
Some
easier
people,
for them.
Like you want to make it as easy as possible, right? So some people will go on the show and then not take advantage of it. Like when I got on the show, I had my video guy create like 5 different clips. I sent them all to Grant's social media manager and said, use them whenever you want. They posted like 3 or 4 of them every time they tagged me in it. So, so show up and then take advantage of opportunities.
Awesome. And let's see. Why do you think people fail at increasing their influence or growing their inner circle?
I think a couple of things. Number one, ignorance. I think not in a mean way. Just people are ignorant to the power of it. They don't know. Like they don't see the ROI on it, so they just don't spend any time doing it. If you spend 6 months networking on purpose and getting in front of people that you want to get in front of, you will recognize the power of doing that, and you'll start doing it a lot more. Just bottom line. So I think it's ignorance, and I think a lot of it is not knowing how. So some people don't know like why they should do it. That's more the ignorance part, and some people just don't know how they should do it. So maybe they're like, hey, I agree that I should go network and I should be meeting Grant Cardone, but I don't know how to do that. So that's what I'm trying to fill the gap with right now with that membership platform I'm telling you about. Trying to get people to like get some of the more methodology behind how to network the right way and put yourself in the right situation. So I think it's a combination of the two.
And when's that gonna launch actually?
That'll take me a few months to get out. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of work. So probably towards the end of this year.
Okay, so if you're watching this on recording, I'll put a link to his membership platform so that way y'all can get it. I want to make sure my audience maximizes what you have to offer.
If you want to see any of the stuff that I'm doing, just he said a link to my Facebook group. Just join my Facebook group. They're like the first to know. I even test stuff with them, do some Facebook Lives in there. So I'd love to see you in my Facebook group.
Yeah, and what are some ways you add more value to your inner circle than you receive?
So this is all about adding value. So I am always looking for ways to stand out and have that slight edge over other people. And so this question is initially like one of the ones that I wrote when I first got started, and I haven't been asking as much recently because it's a difficult question to answer, because one thing I didn't understand when I was first getting started was that every situation is different. There's no blanket answer to this question. The answer is be observant, be on the lookout for ways that you can add value to people that you want to connect with, and then seize those opportunities, take advantage of those opportunities. So for me, when I first met John Lee Dumas, who was a big podcaster and somebody that I wanted to emulate and get to know, I had a couple of options. And I went the pay to play option. I paid $6,500 for a mastermind that was at his house in Puerto Rico. I knew there was only going to be 4 other people there, so I was going to have a chance to actually really connect with the guy. But when I was there, I looked for several ways that I could try to add value to him and build a real relationship with the guy, instead of just like, oh yeah, this is Travis, he paid for a mastermind of mine one time. You know what I mean? I didn't want that just to be my only introduction. So he was going to be at a podcasting event called Podcast Movement in 2 months from then, and was selling some of his Freedom Mastery journals, one of his products that he has for his audience. And so when he was talking about that, he said he had somebody work in the booth, but he asked me to like do a little bit of training with the guy since I have a huge background in sales. And he was like, maybe you can help him sell a few more journals. And I was like, hey man, I'll just work the booth for you. So I spent my money getting out there. I spent my time working a booth for like 8 hours a day at a conference, like selling journals without getting paid. Like it was all totally volunteer, totally for free, but it added a lot of value to somebody who like he could leave that table and be around networking at the conference doing his thing because he was one of the keynote speakers, and come back and know that I had sold journals while he wasn't gone, right? That he was making money while I wasn't there, or he was making money while he wasn't there, because I was doing it for him. So I did that, and then he asked me to come to another event with him, which is the event Thrive, which I already talked about, which is the event where I met Elena and eventually got Grant on my show. So he had me come to Thrive with him, again, paid for my own way to get out there, volunteered my time to sell journals for him, added a lot of value to him, sold a bunch of journals, and now when he introduces me to people, it's more like a, hey, this is my buddy Travis. It's not like oh yeah, but he paid for a mastermind and like that's it. That's his only way of knowing me. It's like, this is my buddy Travis. When I ask him a question now, he'll respond. Like we text a lot. Like he's actually a real mentor to me because I built a real relationship with the guy. I didn't just say, here's some money, teach me, and here's some, like, since I gave you money, now I expect you to add a ton of value to me. It was like, let me give you some money and then let me also add some value to you, because I want to build like a real like relationship, like a true actual friendship with you, and rub shoulders with people like that, because those are the people that are going to help you skip up to the place in line that you want to be. So always look for ways to add value. It's you can't really just answer that question with one thing, because I think it's just about being observant and seizing opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the whole skipping the line thing. That just blew my mind. I didn't really expect that answer. 'Cause you really thought it out. I was like, man, that's really cool. So if you had to choose one networking tip, what would it be?
Go places. And I don't mean that in just like a go to events. This can mean anything, like go to events, join masterminds. This could be something as simple as like, hey, look, if you're used to working from your office and you can get out of the office and go work at Starbucks for an hour, go work at Starbucks and make yourself shake the hand of 3 people at Starbucks that come in. You have no idea who you're meeting. Like even like, and don't ever view a connection and connecting with somebody as a waste of time. Like it does not matter. Like me sitting down with Ronny, I shouldn't be able to like sit down with Ronny and be like, okay, I know that Ronny knows this guy that knows this guy that knows this guy that knows LeBron James. So if I sit down with Ronny, then I can meet this guy, then I can meet this guy, then I can meet this guy, and then he'll introduce me to LeBron James. And I have this like entire like hidden agenda and things that are going on in my head. Like that's not how to do it. Genuinely caring, connecting with people, being totally open to just meeting whoever walks into your life. And then when you're sitting at a Starbucks and you're doing work and you overhear a conversation that's interesting to you, walk up, introduce yourself, say what's up, connect on Facebook, and then leave them. Like, you don't want to like intrude on people's lives and do things that are annoying. But literally, I was sitting at Starbucks yesterday waiting for a meeting here in Dallas, and a lady was sitting next to me. She was having a conversation on the phone. I could tell it was some sort of network marketing company that she was trying to build. When she got off the phone, I was like, hey, network marketing, ha ha ha, been there, done that. Like, we had a conversation about it, connected with her on Facebook. Have no idea if I'll ever even talk to her ever again. Like, but the bottom line is like I met her and we talked for a second. So like that's just furthering my network. Like I don't know, but at the same time, she might know somebody that is really cool. She might see my podcast and be like, wow, I didn't know you had Grant Cardone on your podcast. My buddy does this, this, and this, and would be a great guest for your show. Like you never know like who you're talking to. And so you always want to be genuine, be caring. So I think that my number one practical networking tip is just to get out and go do things. Don't just stay at home and watch Netflix all day.
Perfect. I love that. I love that answer. I think, especially when I was starting the show, I was generally a shy guy before I got into real estate. I'd had one sales job before. Okay. And that's where I broke out of my shell. Yeah. But that's when I started really valuing like the skill of networking. Yeah. So that's a great tip for young people watching out there. Please be sure to take notes. I mean, this is just incredible. I wish I had this conversation with Travis when I was 18. It could have changed.
I wish I had this conversation with Travis when I was 18. Yeah, for sure.
So let's see. Is there a place, either online or in person, that you go to specifically to cultivate relationships?
So I'll throw in the Starbucks shout out again. Lots of freelancers, lots of business people, lots of people like that do business at a Starbucks. So just go sit there, meet up with some people. It's just a very like unassuming place where you could possibly make a great connection with somebody. And then always follow up with the connection on Facebook or some social media. You don't have to get somebody's phone number to be a connection with them anymore. You don't have to like write down their info and put it in your Rolodex to like have a relationship with that person. You don't have to ask for a business card. Just be really genuine. Like, hey, are you on Facebook? Cool, me too. Look them up. Shoot them a friend request. Like a couple of their things so they see you popping up in their feed. They'll go check some of your stuff out. So I would say there, and then I'm going to go really millennial here and say in Facebook groups, use online resources. So, I mean, events, masterminds, stuff like that, those are obvious. I'm not going to tell you guys to go to events because you should be going to events, and if you don't know that, then like you definitely should start there. But I think Facebook groups are super underutilized, and I have a whole guide on this, by the way, a whole ebook on how to connect with people in Facebook groups. You can go pick up a copy of that at buildyournetwork.co/FB. And actually there's a link right there to join my Facebook group after you download that ebook as well. But I think Facebook groups are super underutilized, and I would spend a lot of time in there. It's free marketing. So you have to clean up your Facebook profile first before you go do a bunch of that, because you want people, if you want an example of what that looks like, just go check mine out. Like, you'll see that my cover photo is professionally done has a bunch of people who've been on my show on there. So when somebody comes and clicks on my profile, they go, oh, he has a podcast, because it says I have a podcast right there. It doesn't say like 3 random words about me that are all mystical, like, you know, like entrepreneur, lover of life, and adventurer. Like that tells me nothing, right? So when you go to my Facebook, yeah, it's prominent. People are trying to be clever, right?
Yeah.
Don't be clever. Tell people what you do. Like, your Facebook profile is a business card. So I mean, if and don't me wrong. If you want your Facebook just to be personal and friends and family, whatever, do your thing. I'm not trying to get you to do what I'm doing. But if you're trying to build a brand and get business off of like online stuff, then you have to clean up your Facebook profile. Have a professional profile picture. It can't just be a picture of your favorite sports team. Like, nobody knows who you are. Your cover photo needs to be nice. I would get it professionally designed. It cost me like $60, and one of my designers worked it up for me. My profile says I help people network the right way by asking experts how they do it, and then there's a link to my podcast right there. So it's very, very clear about what I do. And then I cleaned it up to where it doesn't have like all of my personal info in like 12 lines about where I live currently and where I lived last year and where I went to college and where I went to high school and like all this information. It's shortened to like 3 quick little things about who I am and what I'm doing. So clean up your Facebook profile first if you're going to go network in Facebook groups, but I would say go to Facebook groups and go to Starbucks.
Yeah, I think Facebook is really, really key. I actually never like sit at Starbucks and like do that. Maybe I'm going to start trying that, because usually I'm just here in my office and it's just like a bunker.
If you're doing work that can be done anywhere,
yeah,
like I would highly recommend at least once or twice a week, just go do it at a Starbucks and make yourself shake a few hands while you're there. All you got to do is shake a few hands, ask people what they do, and that's it. If they ask you back, great, but don't feel like you got to go in there and be like, oh yeah, cool, my name's Ronnie, I sell real estate, here's my real estate card, call me.
I see a lot of people.
Just be genuine, connect with people, and then if you friend them on Facebook, if they come to your profile, that's your chance to do that. That's why your profile needs to be like what your business card should be. Like your cover photo of you, professional, like I sell real estate in the Dallas area. That call to action should be in your Facebook profile. So when you connect with somebody on Facebook, you're having a call to action without actually like shaking their hand and being like, call me if you need real estate. Like, that is not the way to do it.
Yeah, I see a lot of, there's a lot of trainings out there, and whoever's real estate professionals who are watching this, where you go and you go and talk to 100 people and ask them about real estate. That is not how to get deals.
No.
I mean, that is the
That's
wrong
1983 how to get deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, if you're a real estate agent, or a real estate professional, or a sales professional watching this, I mean, this is so important. Like, doing that hard, talk to 100 people thing, that's not going to work these days. You have to build genuine relationships. That's just my philosophy.
And to caveat this, anything will work short term.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a numbers game. If you go talk to 100 people about real estate, you might get a couple deals from it. Mm-hmm. But if you're that pushy, you might really turn a lot of people off. Whereas if you do it really in a professional relationship building kind of a way, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, like, you will have a much bigger business than you will if you just like look at it as a numbers game and treat people like a number, because people are people, they're not numbers.
Yeah. And who is the most interesting, influential person you've met through networking?
Influential, probably Grant. Interesting, Jeff Hoffman is a really interesting dude. He's one of the founders of Priceline. He's a multi-billionaire. He owns a lot of Priceline, and Priceline's like an $80 billion company. So I don't know exactly how much he's worth, but he's looking at buying an NFL team this year, so that's really interesting. But his life story is just really interesting. Also, Aubrey Marcus, actually one of the reasons that I was out in Texas was to go to Mastermind hosted by Aubrey Marcus. Really, really interesting dude. He's the CEO of Onnit, a large, I think maybe $30-40 million nutritional supplement company. But he also, along with that, has a gym and does training, and just he's a New York Times bestselling author, has a really, really good podcast. Very, very interesting dude for sure, and very successful at what he does. So, yeah, those are a couple people. Actually, Molly Bloom too was one of my
your recent podcast.
Recent podcast guests. Yeah, if you if you don't know who Molly Bloom is, a quick Google search will fill you in. It's totally worth it, and I highly recommend watching the movie that was made about her life called Molly's Game. It was based on her book that she wrote, but she's basically was running a high ticket underground poker ring basically for like A-list celebrities, billionaires, athletes, and stuff like that. And she was like in her late 20s, and just an incredible story. So check that out for sure.
Yeah, those are really, really big names. So what about them like specifically stood out to you?
Man, just like any of the people that I just mentioned have an ability to persuade, which is something that is really intriguing to me. Like just knowing how the human mind works and getting into the psychology of persuasion and how to influence people, like that's a really interesting study to me. So all those people that I talk to are very, very good at that, and it's not in a bad way that they're doing it. It's like in a very like good, positive, uplifting, like help people kind of way. But they just have this like air, this presence about them that gets people to like really get on board with whatever they do. So it's really cool to me.
And through your career, how important have mentorships and masterminds been?
Everything, man. Everything. Yeah. Spent a lot of money, probably, I don't know, 30,000 plus on like masterminds in the last like year. So I think that there's a lot of value there, obviously, or I wouldn't have spent that much money on stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I think that it's super important and highly undervalued. And so if you can kind of get the idea, because it's not just the person that puts on the mastermind, it's the people that you connect with that are also paying a lot of money to be a part of the mastermind. Like there's so much value there, so much.
And what's been your favorite mastermind so far?
It's hard to say. Every mastermind that I've done has been like a little bit different. I've done like weekend masterminds, I've done year-long masterminds, I've done a couple months-long masterminds, I've done like continuity masterminds. Like so, it's difficult to say, man. I get value from all of them.
Yeah, I joined my first mastermind in 2016, and it was called the Real Estate Hustlers Mastermind. That they don't really do that anymore. It kind of went away, but I mean that mastermind completely changed how I did everything. Even like doing the show and stuff, like really influenced me into doing that. So I think if y'all aren't in like a mastermind, I think the paid ones are the best too. For sure. Because people have skin in the game and you have to participate.
When you pay attention. So and so does everybody else.
Perfect. I love that. When you pay attention. That's freaking awesome.
Yep.
So let's see. What fears have you overcome through networking?
There's a lot, man. For me, I'm pretty introverted. So I've always had that fear of like, not really rejection, because I'm a door-to-door salesman by trade. You know what I mean? Like when I was like that's where I made the majority of my money up to podcasting. So it was more like just like this anxiety of like having a bunch of people that you have to initiate a conversation with. It wasn't really like they're gonna reject me. It was just kind of like the fear of actually being in that situation, because I would rather be by myself. You know, I'd rather be with a group of close friends that I've known forever that we can just hang out. You know, but I think that there's a lot of value in getting outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's definitely why I learned through networking, is because I feel like me and you have pretty similar personality types. I'm naturally an introvert, but once I started doing these in sales and doing this podcast and stuff, like this used to frighten me. Like I remember like my first Ronny Phillips show, I was so nervous. And it lasted like 3 minutes, but now I can just sit down and like really have deep conversations and have it go out to my audience. So I think networking is so key, especially with all these young people watching. Like it's so important. Who is the best networker you know, and why did you choose that person?
Jordan Harbinger, because he has built an incredible network for himself. Like he's got his insanely successful podcast, and has interviewed some of the best, people like Shaquille O'Neal was on his show. Like, some of the best people in the world have like been on his show, and I have a lot of respect for Jordan. He's actually becoming a pretty good friend of mine now. But I would say he's the best networker that I know, because he spends a lot of time actually getting better at it and focusing on how to be better at it. He finds a lot of ways to add value to people, and he doesn't ever make people feel like they're lesser than he is or better than he is. Like he treats everybody really equally, which I think is important.
Yeah, I think I think you're the best networker I know, as far as like, dude, 130 episodes in. Someone knocking? Let's see. Oh, I don't know what it was.
I think it's the AC.
But
knocking.
I don't know what that was. Sorry about that. Got distracted. But yeah, I think like with me, I had 16 episodes. I was like, oh, I'm doing pretty good. Then I see you're like at 10x level. It's just so cool to see that. So I really admire you for all the stuff you do.
Appreciate that.
And if you moved to a new place and lost all your current contacts, what would you do to start building your network?
Start a podcast. That's exactly what I did. Yeah, I would 100% start a podcast like immediately, and start doing the same thing that I did to get people on the first time.
Awesome. And this is the random round, which you know very well.
Let's do it.
What profession other than your own do you think it would be fun to attempt?
I think it'd be really dope to be an actor.
Why?
Just always, I feel like it just would be a lot of fun for me. Like it would be cool to like put myself in different roles and be able to like do some of those roles. I feel like I'd be one of those people like Tom Cruise is, where like he gets into the role and like does a lot of his own stunts if he can, you know, like Keanu Reeves, like he does all the shooting and stuff in all of his like John Wick movies, like it's him doing it. I think it'd be cool to develop different skill sets in different areas for the sake of like being an actor in that area, you know. I think it'd be really cool.
I think as content creators, we are actors, but in our own role.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So
without actually acting.
Without actually acting.
To be yourself.
So I think podcasting is like really, I'd say it's relatively more easy than acting.
Yeah.
But I see why you would go to that realm, because you creating hundreds of podcasts a year, doing that acting I think would be cool.
That'd be dope.
If you could sit on a park bench with someone, past or present, and talk to them for an hour, who would it be and why?
Probably Winston Churchill, just because he kept peace in a world of chaos in all of Western culture for an entire, segment of human history. So I think that's really, really cool. Plus he enjoyed cigars, so that was really cool too.
Yeah, we're actually about to go to an event, Matt Monero's event. So about to go do that same thing. Well, I'm not going to smoke a cigar, but I'm sure you will. But Winston Churchill, that's a really good answer. How do you like learning best?
Probably audiobooks has been more and more recently. I do just about everything: podcasts, audiobooks, and books. But preferably probably audiobooks. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think audiobooks, hearing the voice of the author.
Yeah, it has to be. Most of the time, I only listen to audiobooks if it's read by the person who wrote the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do is I get a book, the hard copy, and then put it on 2x speed on Audible, and then I read and I highlight. That's how I consume content.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I think audio is the best. I also like video. Video is pretty cool because if you just put if I put this podcast on YouTube, I have the option to watch and then also just browse around. So I think that's cool. Give us a glimpse of your morning routine.
So this is actually directly from Aubrey Marcus's book. I already mentioned him. I've been constantly forming this with Lewis Howes' Millionaire Morning, with Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning, and now Aubrey Marcus, Own the Day on Your Life. So I try to start every morning with a few things. Number one, hydration. Your body gets very dehydrated when you're sleeping, so I drink about 16 ounces of mineralized water in the morning, alkaline water. So if you don't have alkaline water, look into buying a machine. If you can't afford one, then have purified water, and then add a little bit of lemon or like Himalayan sea salt to put a little bit of minerals in your body, because it's not just the lack of water, it's the lack of the minerals. So make sure that you drink some sort of mineralized water. And then light, so I'll go right onto my balcony, right off of my bedroom, and I expose as much of my body to light as I can, and helps you wake up a little bit.
So you go out in the sun, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Right, I've never heard that.
Yeah, the light. I mean, you gotta think thousands of years ago, our ancestors that's how it worked, right? Their internal clocks knew when the sun would, come up, and when it would go down, they would go to sleep. So now we have all these things that prevent us from going to sleep, with all the blue light from phones and TVs and all that kind of stuff prevents us from sleeping. And then when we wake up, our room is completely dark and it prevents us from waking up. So I try to think about how it would be done a couple thousand years ago, and it's probably what our bodies were really made for, So light, hydration, and then movement. I'll do about 50 jumping jacks when I'm out on the patio, just to get blood pumping and stuff like that. And then from there, I'll go downstairs, take some pre-workout supplements, do a little bit of journaling and a little bit of reading, and then go hit the gym. And then while I'm at the gym, work out. When I shower, I do what's called a power shower, which is from Aubrey's book as well, which is like showering normal hot water, and then the last 3 minutes is completely cold as the water will go, basically shocking your system. And then it helps me mentally, like knowing that like I've already overcome something hard today, like the next thing becomes a lot easier, so mentally it's good. But it's also, there's a lot of really good physical reasons to do that, for like your respiratory system, cardiovascular system. There's a lot of good reasons to expose yourself to cold and to hot and stuff like that. So when I'm at the gym, usually I'll work out, I'll sit in the steam room, which is like exposing myself to really hot temperatures for a period of time, then I'll take a shower and then flip it all the way to cold, then come home and then get started on the day.
Yeah, I think the cold showers, that's been the one thing that's in the morning, you just wake up like that. Have you done cryotherapy?
I have not actually done cryotherapy.
Oh my gosh,
no.
Man. There's a spot I can show you after this. It's $15. You do cryotherapy. Dude, you do sleep like a rock.
Yeah,
like it's
amazing crazy how much it helps. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're in recovery and stuff, I mean that blew my mind. So that's one tip I have for you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What's your go-to pump-up song?
I have a few that I listen to. If I'm like trying to get like a really big set in at the gym or something, it's usually like Yeah by Usher, or Beast from the Southpaw soundtrack, or something like that. Something that's like really, really gets you pumped up.
Yeah, I like honestly like Latino music. Like
really?
that just, I don't know what they're saying, but it sounds nice, like J Balvin or something like that. Yeah, so y'all just learned something new about me today. Okay, what are you not very good at?
I am, oh man, you know what, it's so funny, I just had an answer to this the other day. I was like, man, if somebody asks me that question, I'm gonna know what I'm gonna say to them. But folding laundry, I suck at that, bro. Like, I tried.
Why is that?
I tried to fold laundry. Vic, what's happening, bro? I tried to fold laundry for to be like a good husband, when I first got married a few years ago. And I caught my wife like refolding her clothes later. Like, she was super thankful, super gracious, whatever. And I like felt a pat on the back. I folded laundry, whatever. And then I caught her later like refolding. And I was like, what's wrong? And I just like totally messed it up. Like I can't fold. It always looks horrible. Like, it always turns out bad. She always like refolds my laundry. But anyway, yeah, that's something that I'm not good at.
Awesome. And what's one place online where we'll find you the most?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook group would probably be my main call to action here. So if you're watching this, just head over to buildyournetwork.co/FB, buildyournetwork.co/FB, and you can pick up a copy of my ebook, and then you can also join my Facebook group from there. Say what's up. There's a welcome post in there. It's pinned, and there's a link that you can click on to schedule a one-on-one phone call with me. So if you're interested in just chatting for a bit, stop by the Facebook group, say what's up, let's chat.
And what are you most grateful for?
I am most grateful for the freedom that I've been able to create in my life, to be able to do stuff like this, come to Texas and not worry about, home while I'm here, and just kind of be here. So I'm thankful for the freedom, for sure.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up for this episode of the Ronnie Phillips Show. If y'all found this video valuable, please share it with your friends, your family, and we'll be answering all your questions in the comments below. And thanks so much for being on the show, man.
It, man.
This has been awesome. So, podcaster interviewing another podcaster. This is a very rare thing, I think. So, if y'all have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out. Make sure you follow Travis on all his social media. You can find him on Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, I believe.
Yeah, YouTube a little bit, but I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube. Yeah.
But all those different platforms. And also, if you want to hang out with us tonight, we'll be at Matt Minero's event. I'll make sure to put down the link below as well. He's doing a book signing. If y'all don't know who Matt Minero is, that guy is awesome. I think that's how I first discovered you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Minero stuff, huh? Like his interview?
His interview.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Like when you interviewed him.
He was on my show or I was on his show?
It was on his YouTube page.
His YouTube, so it's probably on his show then.
Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to comment below, and we'll be answering all y'all's questions in the comments. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to comment below. And hope you found this video valuable, and have a great day. Take care.